my fiancée laughed. Your proposal ring is cute, for a peasant. I thought I'd planned the perfect evening when I chose Skyline Terrace, that upscale rooftop restaurant overlooking San Francisco Bay where we'd had our first anniversary dinner. I'd made reservations 3 weeks in advance, specifically requesting the corner table with the best view of the city lights. The vintage diamond ring in my jacket pocket had belonged to my grandmother, a beautiful Art Deco piece from the 1920s with intricate platinum filigree and a flawless 1-carat center stone that had been appraised at $18,000 just for insurance purposes. I'd spent hours at the jeweler getting it professionally cleaned and resized, imagining how Celeste's eyes would light up when she realized the thought and family history behind it. The evening started perfectly. Celeste looked stunning in her black cocktail dress, and I felt confident in my tailored navy suit as we settled into our seats. I'd even coordinated with the restaurant to have champagne ready for after the proposal. But when her friends Madison and Ashley showed up unexpectedly, apparently Celeste had invited them without telling me, I should have realized something was off about the whole setup. Oh good, witnesses for the big moment, Celeste said with a smile that seemed more calculating than excited. I brushed off my unease and went ahead with my plan. After dinner, I got down on one knee right there on the terrace, my heart pounding as I opened the antique velvet box. Celeste, you mean everything to me. Will you marry me? For a moment, she stared at the ring in complete silence. Then she picked it up, examining it under the restaurant's ambient lighting while her friends leaned in closer. That's when everything went sideways. Oh, David, she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, this is so vintage. And small. Madison and Ashley exchanged glances as Celeste continued, I mean, it's cute for what it is, but honey, this is what peasants wore in the old days. Look at Madison's ring from Trevor, 2 carats, modern cut, from Tiffany. This looks like something from a pawn shop. The humiliation hit me like a physical blow as other diners began staring at our table. Celeste, this was my grandmother's, I started, but she cut me off with a wave of her hand. David, sweetie, I know you tried, but you clearly don't understand what kind of lifestyle I expect. When I get engaged, I want people to see my ring from across the room and know my man can provide. This quaint little thing it doesn't match who I am now. Ashley nodded along while Madison actually took out her phone to compare their rings. Trevor makes $400,000 at Goldman Sachs, Madison announced. Ashley's fiancé runs his own tech startup. They understand that a ring is an investment in your woman's future. Celeste smiled triumphantly. Exactly. This sweet little antique might work for someone with simpler tastes, but I need a man who thinks bigger. I stood up slowly, my face burning with embarrassment as I realized the entire restaurant was watching this train wreck unfold. I reached out and quietly took the ring back from her fingers. I understand, I said, my voice steady despite feeling like I'd been gutted. You're absolutely right about one thing, we want different things. I closed the ring box and slipped it back into my jacket pocket. When the server brought our check, I paid the $450 bill without a word, left a generous tip for the staff who'd witnessed this disaster, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Celeste still talking to her friends. Poor David. He's sweet, but he just doesn't get what it takes to keep a woman like me happy. I mean, a family heirloom? What is this, 1950? Their laughter followed me all the way to the elevator, and I knew that everyone on that terrace would remember this as the night they watched a man get publicly demolished by his own proposal. I drove home to my waterfront penthouse in Pacific Heights, the city lights blurring past as I processed what had just happened. The irony wasn't lost on me. Celeste had just rejected a proposal from someone she apparently considered financially inadequate, while sitting in a $3.2 million penthouse overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. The first thing I did was pour myself 3 fingers of Macallan 18 and call my financial advisor, Marcus, despite it being nearly midnight. David? Everything okay? He answered, clearly concerned about the late hour. Marcus, I need to know exactly how much liquid capital I can access immediately, I said, staring out at the marina where dozens of expensive yachts bobbed in their slips. Like, cash in hand within 48 hours. There was a pause. Well, Your investment portfolio is sitting at $2.3 million currently, and with the maritime consulting contracts you've been landing, your liquid assets are substantial. Are you looking at a major purchase? I was looking at something, alright. The next morning, I walked into Bay Area yacht brokers wearing jeans and a simple polo shirt, probably looking like someone who'd wandered in to browse rather than buy. The sales associate, Janet, initially seemed polite but distracted until I mentioned I was interested in purchasing immediately. "What's your budget range?" she asked, pulling up listings on her computer. "Under $1 million cash," I replied casually. Her entire demeanor shifted. Within an hour, we were touring Second Chances, a gorgeous 45-foot Catalina sailing yacht with teak decking, a spacious cabin, and navigation equipment that could handle open ocean sailing. "The owner is motivated to sell," Janet explained as we walked through the immaculate interior. "He's asking $850,000, but I think we could negotiate." I looked out at the panoramic windows facing the bay and made my decision. "I'll take it for $800,000 cash, but I want the transaction completed by end of business today." Janet nearly dropped her clipboard. "Sir, yacht purchases usually involve months of financing arrangements, surveys, inspections." "No financing needed," I interrupted, pulling out my phone to call Marcus. "Let's make this happen." Meanwhile, my phone had been buzzing nonstop with messages from Celeste. They started apologetic. "David, maybe I was a little harsh last night. Can we talk?" Then confused, "I don't understand why you're not answering. I thought we could discuss ring options." Then angry, "This is ridiculous. You can't just disappear because I was honest about my expectations." And finally desperate, "David, I've been calling all day. We have wedding deposits to discuss. The venue needs confirmation for the $40,000 down payment." I read that last message while signing the yacht purchase papers and actually laughed out loud. Wedding deposits that I'd never agreed to pay, for a wedding that was apparently planned around expectations I'd never committed to meet. Janet looked up from the paperwork. "Good news?" she asked. "The best," I replied, transferring $800,000 with a few taps on my banking app. By Thursday, I was the proud owner of Second Chances and had spent 2 days getting reacquainted with sailing after years of focusing on my engineering career. The yacht came fully equipped with everything from navigation systems to a wine fridge, and I'd already scheduled a refresher course with a sailing instructor to update my captain's license. As I sat on the deck that evening, watching the sunset paint the bay in shades of gold and orange, my phone rang. "Celeste." "David, what the hell is going on? I went by your building and the doorman said you've been unavailable. We need to talk about our future." I watched a seal surface near my bow before answering. "Our future ended when you called my grandmother's ring something a peasant would wear," I said calmly. "But Celeste, I'm curious, exactly how many wedding expenses did you commit us to without asking me?" The silence on her end was telling. "David, those were just preliminary deposits. Standard stuff. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. How much, Celeste?" "Well, maybe $75,000 total, but that's normal for the kind of wedding someone in our position should have." Our position? As if humiliating me publicly had somehow made us a team. "Here's the thing," I said, watching another yacht sail past in the distance. "I never agreed to any of those expenses. And after last night, I wouldn't marry you if you came with a dowry and a royal title." The person I really wanted to talk to was Isabella, Celeste's maid of honor, who'd always been the opposite of everything I'd grown to dislike about Celeste's social circle. While Celeste surrounded herself with status-obsessed friends who measured worth by designer labels and bank account balances, Isabella was pursuing her PhD in marine biology at UC Berkeley, studying coral reef restoration with the kind of passionate dedication I'd always admired. She'd been polite but distant during the 3 years I'd dated Celeste, though I'd caught her giving me sympathetic looks whenever Celeste would make cutting remarks about my boring career or simple lifestyle preferences. I'd always found Isabella infinitely more interesting than anyone else in Celeste's orbit. She could discuss ocean conservation with genuine expertise, asked thoughtful questions about my maritime engineering projects, and never once seemed impressed by wealth or status symbols. I texted her Saturday morning, "Isabella, I know this might seem strange, but would you like to go sailing? I just bought a yacht and could use someone who actually appreciates the ocean. Her response came within minutes. David, I heard about what happened at dinner. I'm so sorry Celeste treated you that way. I'd love to see your boat. I'm actually working on a research project about bay ecosystems. When she arrived at the marina that afternoon, wearing practical sailing clothes and carrying a field notebook, I felt something shift in my chest that I hadn't experienced in years with Celeste. This is gorgeous, she said, running her hand along Second Chance's polished rail. A Catalina 45? These are incredible sailing vessels. You could take this anywhere. As we motored out into the bay, Isabella's excitement was infectious. She pointed out harbor seals, identified different seabird species, and explained how the tidal patterns affected marine life distribution. Can I ask you something? I said as we anchored near Angel Island, the city skyline glittering in the afternoon sun. What did you really think about last night? Isabella was quiet for a long moment, watching pelicans dive for fish near our bow. Honestly, I was mortified. I've watched Celeste become more materialistic and entitled over the years, but what she did to you was cruel beyond belief. That ring was beautiful. I could see the craftsmanship and history in it. Any woman should have been honored to receive something so meaningful. She paused, looking directly at me. David, I need to confess something. I've always thought you were too good for her. You're thoughtful, intelligent, genuinely kind, and she never seemed to appreciate any of those qualities. The honesty in her voice made my heart race. I've always been attracted to you, I admitted, but you were her friend, and I respected that boundary. Though I have to ask, are you still loyal to someone who would humiliate a person that way publicly? Isabella laughed, but there was no humor in it. Loyal to Celeste? David, she's been complaining about you for months. Saying you're too boring, too predictable, that she deserves someone with more ambition and style. She's been actively undermining your relationship while expecting you to fund her fantasy lifestyle. I've wanted to tell you to run for your own sake. As the sun began setting behind the Golden Gate Bridge, painting the water in brilliant oranges and pinks, Isabella moved closer to where I sat at the helm. I resigned as her maid of honor yesterday, she said quietly. After seeing how she treated you, I couldn't stand beside her and pretend to support that marriage. Besides, she smiled, looking out at the water, I have better things to do with my time, like spending it with someone who actually values intelligence and character over jewelry and status symbols. Over the next 3 months, Isabella and I spent countless hours aboard Second Chances, combining her marine research with my newfound passion for sailing. She was studying the recovery patterns of eelgrass beds in Richardson Bay, and my yacht provided the perfect platform for her field work. I'd never experienced anything like watching someone pursue their life's passion with such dedication. Isabella would spend hours taking water samples, photographing marine life, and recording data with meticulous precision that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with engineering in the first place. The eelgrass is actually recovering faster than we predicted, she explained one afternoon, showing me underwater photos on her waterproof tablet. These beds are crucial for juvenile fish populations, and the restoration project is exceeding all expectations. Her enthusiasm was intoxicating in a way that Celeste's materialism had never been. By November, I knew I wanted to marry Isabella, but this time I was going to do everything perfectly. I contacted Dr. James Patterson, her research advisor, and arranged to invite 3 of her marine biology colleagues, people whose opinions she valued deeply, to witness what I hoped would be the most meaningful proposal of their scientific careers. I worked with a custom jeweler in Union Square to design a ring featuring ethically sourced blue diamonds arranged to mimic the pattern of ocean waves, with a center stone that caught light like sunlight filtering through water. The ring cost $65,000, but every element was chosen to reflect Isabella's passion for marine conservation rather than just impressive size or status. I want it to represent the ocean she loves, I told the jeweler, not some generic symbol of wealth. The proposal location had to be perfect, so I coordinated with Isabella's research team to anchor Second Chances directly over the Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, about 50 miles northwest of San Francisco. We're doing a special research dive today, I told Isabella that Saturday morning, and Dr. Patterson wants to document the coral formations for his grant application. She was thrilled at the opportunity to dive one of California's most pristine underwater ecosystems. What she didn't know was that I'd hired a professional underwater photographer and a drone operator to capture every moment. As we anchored over the sanctuary with her colleagues already aboard, the late afternoon sun created perfect golden lighting across the Pacific swells. "Isabella," I said, after she'd finished collecting her research samples and we were all gathered on the deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant purples and oranges. "Before we head back, there's something else I want to document today." I dropped to one knee right there on the deck, pulling out the custom ring box as her colleagues formed a perfect circle around us. "You've shown me what it means to love someone for who they truly are, not what they can provide. You've taught me that real partnership means sharing passions, supporting dreams, and building something meaningful together." I opened the box, and the blue diamonds caught the sunset light exactly as I'd hoped. "Will you marry me, and let me spend the rest of my life supporting your incredible work while we sail the world's oceans together?" Isabella's hands flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "David, it's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen." "Yes, absolutely yes." She threw her arms around me as her colleagues erupted in cheers and applause. Dr. Patterson was already taking photos with his professional camera, while the drone operator captured stunning aerial footage of our embrace against the backdrop of the Pacific Ocean. "The ocean theme is perfect," Isabella whispered as I slipped the ring onto her finger. "It's like you designed it specifically for my soul." The underwater photographer had captured shots of us through the boat's glass bottom, creating images that looked like we were floating above an underwater paradise. Within hours, Isabella posted the photos on her marine conservation Instagram account with the caption, "He proposed at my favorite research site, with a ring that celebrates the ocean we both love." Sometimes the best partnerships are built on shared passions rather than shared bank accounts. The social media explosion started almost immediately. Isabella's post began gaining traction when Ocean Conservancy, a major environmental organization with 2.3 million followers, shared her engagement photos with the caption, "This is how you propose to a marine scientist." Congratulations to Dr. Isabella Torres and David on their stunning oceanic engagement. True love meets ocean conservation. Within 6 hours, the post had 50,000 likes and hundreds of comments praising both the romantic gesture and the environmental message. Marine biology influencers started sharing the drone footage, and suddenly #Yacht proposal was trending alongside #OceanLove as people celebrated what they called the most thoughtful proposal of 2023. That's when Celeste discovered what had happened. Madison called me Sunday morning, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "David, what the hell is going on? Celeste is absolutely losing her mind over some engagement photos all over Instagram. She's saying you stole her maid of honor and that this whole thing is some kind of revenge plot." I was making coffee aboard Second Chances, watching Isabella review research data on her laptop, looking completely content and beautiful in the morning sunlight. "Madison, I didn't steal anyone. Isabella made her own choice to distance herself from someone who treats people cruelly. As for revenge, marrying someone I actually love isn't revenge, it's common sense." Celeste's response was swift and completely predictable. By Sunday afternoon, she'd launched a social media campaign designed to paint herself as the victim and me as a manipulative predator who had groomed her best friend while engaged to her. She posted old photos of us together with captions like, "When someone you trust betrays everything you built together," and "Some people will do anything for revenge, even manipulate your closest friends." The most desperate post showed a screenshot of her text thread trying to reach me, with the caption, 3 years together and he disappears without explanation, then immediately starts dating my maid of honor. This is emotional abuse. But Celeste had seriously miscalculated how social media works. Within hours, people who'd been at Skyline Terrace that night started posting their own videos and photos. A woman named Jennifer uploaded cell phone footage of Celeste's cruel rejection with the caption, "This is the same woman now claiming she was emotionally abused. I watched her humiliate this poor guy in public." Another diner posted, She literally called his grandmother's ring peasant jewelry and laughed about it. Now she's mad he found someone who appreciates him. The hashtag peasant ring started trending as people shared stories about meaningful family heirlooms and criticized Celeste's materialism. The viral momentum became unstoppable when environmental activist groups began using our engagement as an example of authentic relationships versus shallow materialism. A popular TikTok creator made a video comparing Celeste's ring demands with Isabella's genuine excitement about ocean conservation, garnering 800,000 views in 24 hours. Comments poured in supporting our relationship. This man went from being called a peasant to proposing on a yacht to someone who actually deserves him, and the difference between these two women says everything about knowing your worth. Even major news outlets picked up the story, with headlines like "Yacht Proposal Goes Viral After Exposing Gold Digger's True Colors" and "Marine Scientist's Engagement Shows Real Love Trumps Materialism." Meanwhile, Isabella was handling the attention with the same grace she brought to everything else. "I'm getting interview requests from conservation magazines," she told me, scrolling through her emails. "They want to feature our story as an example of couples building meaningful lives together. Apparently, we're inspiring other scientists to pursue relationships based on shared values." I watched Celeste's follower count dropping by thousands each day as brands distanced themselves from the controversy, while Isabella gained 75,000 new followers interested in marine conservation. The irony was perfect. Celeste's attempt to destroy us had instead created a platform for Isabella's important work and turned us into symbols of authentic love. 2 weeks after the viral explosion, I received a certified letter from Hartwell and Associates, Celeste's attorney. The legal demand was both predictable and absurd: $75,000 in compensation for emotional distress, public humiliation, and financial damages resulting from defendants' abandonment of a committed relationship without proper notice. The letter detailed wedding expenses she'd allegedly committed to on my behalf: $35,000 for the Four Seasons venue, $15,000 for catering upgrades, $12,000 for photography, and $13,000 for various other luxury details I'd never approved. Ms. Rodriguez entered into these financial commitments based on reasonable expectations of marriage and shared financial responsibility, the lawyer wrote. Mr. Clark's sudden abandonment has caused significant financial and emotional harm. I forwarded the letter to my attorney, Patricia Nunez, a maritime law specialist who'd helped me with yacht documentation and happened to have experience with contract disputes. Patricia's response was swift and surgical. "This is actually hilarious," she said during our meeting at her downtown office. "Celeste made financial commitments using your name and creditworthiness without any written authorization, which is potentially fraudulent. More importantly, her public rejection of your proposal legally terminated any implied engagement contract. You can't abandon something that was already ended by the other party." Patricia had already pulled security footage from Skyline Terrace through a simple legal request, clearly showing Celeste rejecting my proposal and publicly humiliating me. The legal proceedings attracted media attention when Patricia filed a countersuit for defamation, citing Celeste's false social media claims about emotional abuse and manipulation. "My client was the victim of public humiliation and financial fraud," Patricia announced to reporters outside the courthouse. "Ms. Rodriguez is now attempting to extort money from a man she publicly rejected and embarrassed. This case will demonstrate the difference between genuine legal claims and opportunistic revenge tactics." The local news coverage was devastating for Celeste, with legal experts explaining how her unauthorized financial commitments could constitute fraud. Meanwhile, Celeste's carefully constructed lifestyle was crumbling. The wedding vendors she'd booked began demanding immediate payment for services she'd ordered without my knowledge or approval. The Four Seasons threatened legal action for the $35,000 deposit she couldn't cover. Her credit score plummeted when she defaulted on payments for the photographer and caterer. Madison called me in a panic. "David, you have to help her. She's living on my couch because she can't afford rent without someone subsidizing her lifestyle. All those wedding deposits are destroying her financially." I listened to Madison's pleading with the same detachment I'd felt watching Celeste's social media meltdown. The final court hearing was almost anticlimactic. Patricia presented documentation showing that Celeste had made unauthorized financial commitments, evidence of her public rejection of my proposal, and proof of her defamatory social media posts. Celeste's lawyer tried to argue that implied engagement created financial obligations, but the judge dismissed this immediately. The defendant clearly and publicly ended this relationship, Judge Williams stated. She cannot claim abandonment after explicitly rejecting the plaintiff's proposal. Furthermore, making financial commitments without authorization borders on fraud. Celeste was ordered to pay my legal fees and issue a public retraction of her abuse claims. The media coverage turned us into an unlikely celebrity couple representing authentic relationships versus entitled materialism. Entertainment Weekly featured our story with the headline, "From Public Humiliation to Perfect Proposal, How One Man's Yacht Purchase Led to Viral Love Story." Isabella and I were invited to appear on Good Morning America to discuss our relationship and her marine conservation work. "The real story isn't about revenge," Isabella explained to the host. "It's about recognizing when someone shows you their true character and having the wisdom to find someone whose values align with yours." As we sat together on that morning show set, Isabella's engagement ring catching the studio lights, I realized that Celeste's cruelty had been the best thing that ever happened to me. 6 months later, Isabella and I were collaborating on something far more meaningful than either of us had imagined possible. Using profits from my maritime engineering consulting, which had exploded after our viral story brought me high-profile clients, we funded Ocean's Promise, a documentary series about coral reef restoration that combined Isabella's scientific expertise with professional filmmaking. "We're creating content that actually matters," Isabella explained to the Netflix executives who'd approached us after seeing our Good Morning America interview. "Each episode will focus on a different marine ecosystem while showing how ordinary people can contribute to conservation efforts." The series was greenlit for 12 episodes, with Second Chances serving as our floating production headquarters. Meanwhile, Celeste's world had completely imploded. After losing the defamation case and being unable to pay the wedding vendor debts, she'd been forced to file for bankruptcy and move back to her parents' house in Fresno. Her social media presence, once carefully curated to showcase luxury lifestyle content, had been abandoned after losing 80% of her followers and all her brand partnerships. Madison updated me occasionally, though I'd made it clear I didn't need the information. She's working at Target now and living in her childhood bedroom. Keeps talking about how she made the biggest mistake of her life. The woman who'd called my grandmother's ring peasant jewelry was now folding clothes for minimum wage while Isabella and I sailed the Pacific documenting marine life. Our wedding took place 8 months after my original proposal disaster, aboard Second Chances anchored in Monterey Bay during peak whale migration season. Instead of the stuffy country club affair Celeste had planned, we were surrounded by marine scientists, environmental activists, and our closest family members as humpback whales breached in the background. Dr. Patterson officiated the ceremony, incorporating readings about ocean conservation and the interconnectedness of marine ecosystems. "David and Isabella represent the kind of partnership that changes the world," he said as we exchanged rings made from recycled ocean plastic and ethically sourced gems. "They've shown us that true love multiplies positive impact rather than just personal gratification." The wedding photos, taken by the same underwater photographer who'd captured our engagement, went viral again for all the right reasons. Environmental organizations shared images of our ceremony with whales visible in the distance, using hashtags like #OceanWedding and #ConservationLove. The coverage generated massive interest in our documentary series, which had already secured funding from 3 major environmental foundations. "You've turned your yacht into a platform for global marine conservation," a National Geographic producer told us during our honeymoon cruise to document sea otter populations in Big Sur. "This is exactly the kind of content that changes minds and inspires action." The final twist came a year later when Isabella's research, conducted from Second Chances, contributed to establishing a new marine protected area off the California coast. Standing on our yacht's deck as she presented her findings to the State Environmental Committee, I watched my wife, brilliant, passionate, genuinely caring, receive a standing ovation for work that would protect ocean ecosystems for generations. That evening, as we celebrated with champagne and watched dolphins play in our wake, Isabella showed me a message she'd received on Instagram. "You inspire me to pursue marine biology. Thank you for showing that meaningful careers matter more than material things." It was from a teenager in Ohio who'd been following our documentary series. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Celeste had said yes to your proposal? Isabella asked as we anchored in a secluded cove near Carmel. I considered the question while watching her research equipment scattered across our cabin table, evidence of the productive, meaningful life we'd built together. Honestly, I'd probably be funding someone else's fantasy lifestyle while slowly losing myself in a relationship built on transactions rather than connection. Instead, I'm married to someone who makes the world better every single day. Isabella smiled, her engagement ring catching moonlight as she reached for my hand. Your grandmother's ring was beautiful, by the way. A woman who truly loved you would have treasured both the history and the thought behind it. I kissed her then, grateful beyond measure that sometimes rejection leads to exactly where you're supposed to be, floating under the stars with someone who sees your value and multiplies it rather than diminishing it.